So thanks for joining us for the fifth and final beer in our Freaky Franchise series. We made that easy to say, didn't we? All the Fs, and yet more Fs, because this is the final chapter. So this has been brewed with Emperor's Brewing, which is probably on some of your radars, but not some of your radars, because Damien is still brewing on a relatively small scale, just knocking out epically, ridiculously good stouts. But his stouts have seen him climb to the UK's highest rated brewery, and at one point was the world's highest rated brewery, is that right?
If you exclude all the meaderies that are in the untapped charts, it was the highest rated brewery in the world.
Yeah, I think he might have dropped to like number 3 in the world now, but it's still ranked as the UK's highest rated brewery. Specialises in big stouts produced in small volumes. They're rare to get, and he's a big guy for the collabs. So we're lucky to be able to get a collab with him. In fact, we're doubly lucky because this is one of 2 that we're doing with him this year. This, like the rest of the series, has had to be done as a virtual collab, so Damien wasn't able to join us while we brewed this, but he will be along to brew another beer next time. We're still working on the detail of what that's going to be, but this particular one is a 15% variant of our kind of milk stout defining Tonka.
Yes, so this is something that we've had in the works for a while. So I think Roddy in particular is good friends with Damien at Empress.
I think Alistair is as well,
and our production manager and our one of our brewers. So they've had the we work on this quite a while, and we hope to have got the dedicated collab out a long time before this, but when we realised that was a chance to do it as part of the birthday series, thought it was a great opportunity to combine the ideas that the guys who came up with the base beer. Lee said Tonka, and because we did the Empress Tonka, which was the biggest version of Tonka we've ever done before, we thought to do an Emperor's Tonka would be really cool.
So for all we've called it the final chapter, to us we know this as Emperor's Tonka because it's been brewed with Damien.
So that was our working title that we still call it right in the brewery. So what is it? It's, if you don't know Tonka by now, then you need to go try it. And if you don't know Tonka, it means you don't know Imperial Tonka or
Empress Tonka or Cherry Tonka. So it's a beer that was released at 4.3% back in September 2016. Originally launched at York Canberra Beer Festival. It won beer of the festival on that occasion, and it's proved to be so popular that it has spawned this series of beers. We took it up to 7.5%, 10.6%, then 12% with the Cherry Tonka. We've done barrel-aged versions. One of the barrel-aged versions, the Buffalo Trace one, won UK's Best Barrel-Aged Beer at the World Beer Awards. So this series of beers has a lot of esteem, and now we've taken it on to the next level. We're now up to 15%, and I've just drunk that. That is, I know you shouldn't brag about your own beers, but that is good.
So this is like our horror franchise. This beer has been around in the 5 years we've been around, and we've done all sorts with it. And this is the most insane version we've done yet. So 15%, so super high ABV, super thick body, lots and lots and lots of coconut. So toasted coconut goes in there, along with the honeycomb that Lee mentioned on a previous video. So we've used a lot of honeycomb in there, so lots of extra sweetness from that as well.
Yeah, I think it was... How much did we put in this one? I want to say half a ton.
There was a lot. There was so many bags of that.
It was a lot.
Around.
And I think that, beyond all the lactose and maltodextrin and things we've got in there, I think that's what really has brought the body on in this.
One of the things we're hoping for with this beer is not only to get those flavours combined and get the work with Lee and Damien to try and come up with a recipe that we thought was really going to kick ass, but we wanted to get a reasonable volume of it out there, because Lee mentioned Emperor's are brewing on a relatively small scale at the moment, so we're trying to get a reasonable volume of the beer out for people to try, and then we haven't actually managed to get that much of it, have we? So it's not going to go that far, but we are going to barrel age some, and we're going to make sure that we brew another beer with them shortly. So.
Yeah, the challenge we have is when you present yeast with this volume of sugar, it tends to get a little bit excited.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it tends to then spit itself all over the floor. So we lose a large proportion of the beer with it blowing out. And then a beer like this then undergoes an infusion process. That's how we get the coconut and cacao character into the beer. And then it's now impossible to get all of that beer back out of the infusion because some of it gets absorbed, some of it just gets stuck in the vessel that we infuse from. So yeah, the yield wasn't what we hoped for, but what we have got, I think is pretty damn good.
So one of the things that when we talk about with beer, when we do lots of dry hopping in tanks, adding the hops and infusing that flavour, and then double dry hopping, you end up with a relatively low yield, relatively low volume of beer at the end. And whenever we make a variant of Tonka, we have the same problem. It's not dry hopping, it's dry coconut in. We put that much coconut in the infusion, and we lose lots of liquid to that process. So it always makes it not a most efficient way of brewing the beer, but we think the coconut infusion really shows. So it's worth that sacrifice in losing some of the final volume to get that type of coconut flavour running through it. So I think we've got one of the questions that we'll be answering later about coconut infusion, but we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that when we get the chance.
Yeah, so we're not complete purists as brewers. We've already acknowledged excuse me, earlier on in this series of beers that where the occasion calls for it, we will use the odd flavouring. So we may not use nuts, so we avoid allergies using nut flavourings. Whereas with coconut, I have drank other beers that claim to be coconut this, coconut that, and I can tell if it's extract. I know when it's not real coconut. So I think the only way to achieve what we're attempting to do with this beer is to do exactly what we do and accept these losses, unfortunately.
And one of the byproducts we said earlier about using nuts in beer is that unfortunately you do get the oils, and the oils are what make this beer taste like coconut. It makes it really good, but it's terrible for head retention. So you might notice on both our beers there's literally zero head on there. That's part of the oils and the coconut just killing that, but it still tastes great, so you don't need a head on the pint to make it taste great.
Yeah.
So final chapter, the final in our series, the fifth and final, and we did it with Emperors. One of the films that we based this on is one that not many of you might have heard of. This is The Puppet Master. So this is one that was around when I was watching horror films when I was a teenager.
It's definitely more the kind of B movie like horror genre.
Yeah, I think
you're not necessarily, like Wayne says, going to have heard of this one.
But we thought the name was perfect as well. So it was the fifth and final of the birthday beers, the final chapter, and the first couple of films in the Puppet Master series were a bit more high budget than the latter ones, but we thought the character was quite good and the name was really good, so we wanted to use
sometimes the latter films in the series are worth watching because sometimes something can be so crap that it's good.
We could have gone for a Leprechaun themed beer, but that was too much. Warwick Davis and Jennifer Aniston in the Leprechaun, the original, brilliant film.
I've not seen that one.
Yeah, that's cheesy. So it's a final chapter. Like the other beers, barrel aged version is going to go be available for our 6th birthday. We went all out, all in one barrel this time.
All in one, and we're going in a different direction this time. So those of you familiar with the Tonka series will only ever have seen us do bourbon before, or red wine.
Yeah,
or red wine.
I know I've been paying attention on either of the videos.
So this time we're going rum. So we saw some rum barrels. We think that's going to complement the coconut. I mean, coconut rum.
Yeah, especially
what's that very famous Malibu? Is it Malibu?
Tonka rum.
Oh, that one. Sorry, yeah.
So yeah, if you do like Tonka and you like rum, you might have seen that we have a rum out called creatively Tonka rum, which are these flavour profiles in a rum, and we know that
that's what we need to do longer term. Barrels with our own rum in that we then age the beer in.
Yeah. So if you we know that flavour profile works, so we thought we'd give that a try on this beer, and you can tell us in a year's time if you think it's worked.
And you may also see a couple of nods to Star Wars on this can. So Damien has allowed us to use a non-Star Wars related name for this one, because every beer he ever does has some sort of nod to Star Wars. So in us calling it the final chapter, it doesn't. That relates to the Puppet Master, as we said there. So we have made a couple of concessions. You can see the funeral pyre that the Puppet Master character on is much like that which Darth Vader was on. and you will see Darth Vader's melted mask towards the bottom of that funeral pyre.
And it happens to be May the 4th that we're filming this, so Star Wars Day, might as well talk about Star Wars but themed beer. So as with all the other beers in the Freaky franchise series, the last 5 tasting videos, we're going to answer a couple of questions. If we don't answer them this time, then drop us an email, hopefully we'll be able to answer them afterwards. But the first one we've kind of already covered. What type of coconut do you use for the final chapter? It's my favourite ingredients in a stout or porter. That's from James Morgan.
So we have changed over time. So we first started out using pure desiccated coconut. We then began to toast the coconut ourselves. Toasting removes some of the oils, which Wayne has highlighted causes a problem to your head retention. And toasting also kind of accentuates that coconut character. So we began to toast our own coconut, but then growing to the scale that we've grown to, that became more and more of a challenge. And the type of infusion process that we were working, because desiccant coconut's really small, it just all compacts together. It was hard to get the beer through it. So we've now moved over to using flaked toasted coconut. So it's still toasted to reduce the oil content and to enhance the coconut flavour, but it's just bigger chunks that allows the flow of the liquid over it more easily.
And then question 2 is from Alan Radley. So is 15% stout the strongest you've ever made?
So far, but you do know we will go bigger at some point.
We've set the target now for next year's birthday beers.
Going beyond this kind of strength is challenging because an average yeast tolerance is going to be around 12%. So to do 15%, we have to work with some particular yeasts that are more tolerant of high alcohol. It essentially starts poisoning itself and it kills itself through the production of alcohol. So if you go above 15%, you either need a specialist yeast or you need to start doing sort of different types of distillation, freeze distillation, for example, where you basically freeze it, remove the water, concentrate it. I think that's what Brewdog did with Sink the Bismarck and so forth.
Nuclear Penguin.
Yeah.
So got one from Dean, question 3 apparently. He said, where can I purchase them? I didn't pre-order. Or when, sorry. By the time you're watching this, unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to, but hopefully we're going to have a few left that we can put on sale in the next couple of weeks. We just wanted to make sure we fulfill all the pre-orders first. If you didn't manage to pre-order, then we have a list of our, if anyone buys our beer regularly from an independent bottle shop, hopefully they're part of our can club who get the exclusive access to our new releases. All our can club members have pretty much ordered a set of these, so hopefully you'll be able to get them from there. So we've got another question from OBeeryMe on Instagram. This is, what was it like working with Damien at Emperor's Brewery and what did you learn from it?
So unfortunately, as we said earlier, as with all these beers, we were only able to do it virtually. So me and Damien, I think, had a couple of phone calls, shared a few emails, talked through a lot of stuff. Cool guy, cool to work with. I think you drank with him kind of accidentally in Sheffield once.
Bumped into him in Sheffield,
So yeah, he's a good guy to work with. I think what I probably learned most is he likes to age all of his stouts for 6 months, which for us on a commercial scale is not viable. We'd love to be able to do that, but the cost that would then mean we would have to pass on to you would not mean it make it very palatable, I think. We are hoping to work together again later in the year when Damien can hopefully come and join us here, and we'll do something again that's going to go into barrels.
Yeah, it's kind of standard now. Whenever we do a collab, now they've got a new production facility underway, we can do something big, ready to sell instantly, so that we can brew it and then release it in 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a little bit more, and then we can do something really super exclusive and interesting to brew at the original brewery site, so on a smaller scale where we can barrel age it or do something funky and interesting. So we've got that, we're fortunate enough to have that option now. So that's the 5th and final beer of the series. Hopefully you've enjoyed them all. You haven't drank them all in one session and maybe gone a bit too hard.
Who would do that?
And hopefully you'll try them all in their barrel aged form next year as well. So the five beers, the 5 series, it was something that we wanted to do. We thought it was really interesting as a concept to be able to line the story up and start with the 11%, work the way through the different horror franchises, all the way up to 15%. You guys can then take that story and put it into a diary, a little book that we gave out with the beers, and mark your notes. Lee's going to tell you a little bit about the artwork and the thoughts there.
Excuse me, our story coming to a conclusion, or is it? So you'll see there that our villain has been defeated. The puppet master is being burned on the funeral pyre. Yet, however, the puppet mastered hand is still controlling our heroine. So I think, as we say on the can, the battle may be won, but the war is still to be fought. I think we said something along those lines anyway.
You said it easier than me. If you're a fan of cheesy horror or this type of horror film that we like to pay homage to, you'll know that you don't stop after a 5th film. You keep milking it. You've got to bring the 6th film out. You've got to bring the 7th film out. These are the only 5 we're releasing this year, but hopefully next year we'll be able to add a 6th. Maybe a 7th, or maybe we just double them all up and do a barrel-aged version as well.
But you know, like researching this, I love the Hellraiser films, the Clive Barker ones, and I thought it stopped after 3.
Okay.
So I didn't like include them in consideration for this, and it was only after we've agreed all this concept that I realised they're up to like about number 7 now.
I think the name had already been used. I think that was another reason why it didn't crop up. But yeah. Pretty interesting concept that we decided to use for this. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and let us know what your favourite beers have been, whether you preferred the lower ABV, the flavour profiles, or whether you just really want to try the barrel aged ones next year.
Yeah, I'm tempted to say trying to pick my favourite would be like picking my favourite child.
Your favourite dream child?
Favourite dream child, but indeed. But I am going to pick 2. I'm going to say the chili mole stout one. And the final chapter would have to be the 2 that I've enjoyed the most. But all I am very proud of, but they are the 2 that I think stand out the most.
Yeah, I think of the series, there's a natural progression in terms of obviously the strength, which then gives you a lot of the flavour profile. I really like the Dream Child, which is the 4th one. In addition to that, yeah, the one with Face, the Mole, stands out just because it's quite different to the rest. And
that's 2 votes for the mole though.
Yeah, and then if I want to be fair, the one that impressed me the most compared to in tank was the first. So the basically because the breakfast bit, the coffee and stuff hadn't really come out in tank. When I tasted it in can, I really enjoyed the coffee and blueberry on the first. So there we go.
We like them all basically.
Yeah.
But let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you think. Which is your favourites? If you don't let us know, we'll find out from what you put on tap.
Cheers.
Cheers.